All right, final thoughts time.
Final thoughts. Yeah, hey, look. So we were discussing on what to do for our final thoughts segment, had some things bouncing around. I mentioned to you, I said, hey, Zach, I said, were you a fan of wrestling as a kid, like WWF wrestling? And you said no, like I wasn't. For me, I personally was. Like I was I was really into wrestling as a kid. WWF, Hulk Hogan was my hero. What sparked this is ESPN is doing one of their 30 for 30s tonight. Something we agree on that we both really enjoy, the 30 for 30s. And they're doing it on Ric Flair. And it looks really, really good. Ric Flair, one of the more prominent wrestlers in WWF and WCW history. He's had a lot of interesting situations, not only in the ring but outside the ring as well, that I'm sure that they'll get into there. And it just kind of got me thinking of like when I was younger, man, I loved wrestling. Like I said, Hulk Hogan was my hero. I dressed up for him as for Halloween one year. Like I had the whole getup that he wore, like out to the ring. And like I remember when I had to be like 5 or 6, and he was wrestling this one guy. I forget the guy's name. It was like, I forget his name, but he was like a big dude, like heavy guy. And I remember like he hurt Hulk Hogan so bad that like I like cried because I thought Hulk Hogan was like gonna die. Like I thought he was like seriously hurt. Like they had to like carry him out and stuff. Obviously, it was part of the whole act. You know, wrestling's fake, but you're 6 years old. You don't know that. You think your hero is gonna die. So I remember crying, and it just got me thinking like. I had like the action figure wrestling action figures. I had a bunch of them. I had like a wrestling ring, man. I'm telling you, man, I was really into wrestling as a kid, and I thought it was really well done back then. Like I had a lot of tapes and stuff, like VHS tapes that with old matches on them and stuff. And it was really well done back then. And even like when we got into like middle school and early high school, wrestling wasn't too bad then. You want to look at poor television? Turn on wrestling right now. Wrestling right now is bad. Like it's really bad. I mean, it's a joke. Like I haven't watched it in years because back then it was even bad. I can't imagine what it's like now. But yeah, it just got me thinking. Like some of those old school wrestlers, like I said, Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior. I mean, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock. Look, how about The Rock? What a transformation The Rock has had. I mean, he came into wrestling when he made his intro into wrestling. He wasn't a prominent figure. He was kind of just a guy that he wrestled here and there. Was part of this kind of group that they had called the Nation. It was like a group of 5 or 6 guys that was always like together. And would come down to the ring and make speeches and talk trash and everything. And then he finally got on his own, wrestled, turned into the Rock, and now look at him. I think he's the highest grossing actor right now, currently, for our generation right now. So it's funny how things can turn around. So. You didn't get into wrestling, huh? You weren't into it at all. You didn't watch it at all?
I did not. One thing I want to bring up, talking about The Rock there, I actually heard this last week when we did our podcast. I said about how one of the ones I enjoy is The Starters. And one of the facts they dropped this past week was that The Rock has more Instagram followers than I think all but 7 countries have people in them. So, like, if The Rock's Instagram followers were a country, they'd be something like the 7th or 8th largest country in the world.
Wow. That's crazy. It's funny because I follow The Rock on Instagram. And it's funny because, like, he's actually a pretty good follow. I think he's a pretty fun – like, I actually think he's a pretty funny guy. Like, let's see. He has 95.5 million followers.
Yeah, because I actually just added him.
Let's put that in perspective. I have 247 followers.
Got a couple more to go, man.
Almost there. You say you just started following him?
Yeah, I just started following him after that podcast. Actually, I went and checked on, and he's very entertaining. He's very personable. He has a great story. I was I was watching a quick video of him. I don't think it was on his Instagram. I think it was another video, but him talking about how one of the best things for him in his entire life was when he didn't achieve his dream of playing in the
Yes.
NFL and he got cut.
I saw that.
That kind of sparked going in another direction and kind of pivoting and having an incredibly successful career.
I remember that video because he made like the message of it was like, just because you don't quote unquote reach your goal doesn't mean you're a failure, because he didn't reach his goal, but things turned out pretty well for him. So I thought that was a really good message as well. And yeah, he's definitely come a long way from his days in wrestling. But it's funny because I remember, as a kid, I actually got in trouble one time because I would wrestle with my dog. And like the one time, like I did something, she like squealed, and my parents, they yelled at me. They were pissed. They were so like, they yelled, and like I had to like, I forget how young I was, but I had to like, go to timeout and all that shit, go to my room. But yeah, dude, wrestling, I loved it as a kid, man. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to touch on that briefly, and I'm looking forward. That comes on in an hour, so an hour from now I'll be watching the 30 for 30 about Ric Flair. So. That's interesting. Last thing I wanted to touch on real quick, Zach, something that happened a few short hours ago, and it's kind of a somber note, but definitely something I wanted to touch on. Roy Halladay, the former Philadelphia Phillies pitcher, actually passed away this afternoon. Got into a plane crash in the Gulf of Mexico, right off the coast of Florida. Ever since he retired from baseball, he's been really into flying planes and that kind of stuff. And he recently just got his own one just a few short months ago, and had been posting really cool Twitter videos on social media of like him above the clouds and like flying during sunsets, and just posting some really cool videos. And for him to get into an accident today, to pass away is brutal, because Roy Halladay, when he was with the Phillies and the Phillies were in their prime, back in like 2009, 2010, 2011, I mean, he was one of, if not the biggest part of those teams, and just so dominant and effortless, and him pitching that no-hitter in his first ever postseason game. He pitches a no-hitter. Was something I'll always remember, and I always remember watching. And I'll let you say your piece here. Last thing I want to say about it was a story that Chase Utley told earlier today. He said the first time he met Roy Halladay when he came to Philly was the first day of spring training. Chase Utley got into the stadium, and he thought he was going to be the first one there. And Roy Halladay was already there. And when he saw him, he was like soaking wet. And he's like, damn, dude, you get caught in the rain somewhere or something? Like joking around. He goes, oh, no, like I've been here for an hour and a half. I just got done doing my workout. That was at 5:30 in the morning. He already completed a workout, a kick-ass workout at 5:30 in the morning before anyone had ever gotten there. And that just goes to show you the kind of player and the kind of dedication he had. And everyone says how great of a person he was. So rest in peace to him. And obviously my prayers and thoughts and prayers are with his family and his two young kids who, as someone that lost their dad, I totally understand what they're going through. And it's not enjoyable. So just wanted to touch on that briefly, because it's a real shame.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I appreciate you bringing that up there. He was definitely a great player. I remember still collecting his cards when he was with the Blue Jays when he was younger. Yep. He was just a fantastic player, and I'm not even someone that followed baseball real closely, but I knew how talented he was, and I know how I was in that Philly area growing up, and how excited everyone was when they acquired him, and he was there. He was on their World Series team, right?
He was not. He got there. He got there a year after. He got there. He got there a year or two after. And that was another thing. It was a shame they couldn't get him a World Series ring, because he definitely deserved one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because I remember that being in college when he ended up on the Phillies, that I had so many friends that were Phillies fans that were so excited about that.
Yep.
And he, very talented player for a long, long time there in the MLB.
Had 67 complete games in his career, which that's unheard of this day and age with pitch counts and inning restrictions and stuff like that. Yeah, just the word horse gets thrown around with certain pitchers. He was every definition of the word horse when he came to a starting pitcher. Just fantastic. 40 years old. Roy Halladay, unfortunately, passes away from a plane accident. So just wanted to touch on that briefly, Zach. I know it's not the best way to end a show, but definitely wanted to touch on that just because being Phillies fans and even if we weren't Phillies fans, we would touch on it because it's not something that you want to see happen. So, like I said, thoughts and prayers to his family and to his friends. So, Roy, rest in peace, my man. We're gonna miss you. So, you got anything else to add before we go, Zach?
I think we're good to close it out on that. Same thing from both of us. Thoughts and prayers to the family. It's always tough seeing someone like that go before what seems like their time. But obviously, like we said, great person, put in a lot of hard work there. I'm sure inspired a lot of people that are currently in the MLB or working towards there. So fantastic inspiration there throughout his life. And you always love to see a great person like that. So we'll close out on that note. It's been another great episode. So we've been enjoying this. We'll be back again next week. All of you, have a great week. Thank you so much for listening to the Lifelong Rivals Sports Podcast. We really appreciate it. We've changed some things up based on some of the feedback we've received. So we'd love to continue hearing your feedback as we continue to build this platform with our podcast. It's very helpful to us if you can share it with the people you know that you think would be interested. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much and have a great week.